Hello and welcome to episode 167 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam,
And I am Sahil.
and there are just some teams that and we don't say this out loud, but there are some teams that we could play 100 seasons of this league and they're not going to win a single championship. And I think that I am one of those teams.
Uh, all right. Well, y'all, welcome to episode one of Cam's therapy session. Uh, yeah. So this one, Cam is this is not a good week for you.
You know, I came into this week needing a couple things to happen. Um, but basically, essentially uh, needing a few matches to go my way, needing most importantly to beat Ruthvik in order to lock up the bye with 1 week to go. All of the hard stuff happened, but Ruthvik, who was not trying to win, he was actively rooting for me in the chat to win. He wants his draft lottery odds to go up. He does not want to win. He was not trying to win and I could not beat him. And as such, I am in a whole big mess with my hardest matchup of the year still remaining.
Yeah. I mean, look, and I think I said some of this more eloquently off air, and I regret that we were not recording for some of this. But look, the reality of the situation is that you entered the week as the number two seed, and you are exiting this week as the number two seed. Now, your path may have gotten harder. You have no more margin for error. You have to win next week, otherwise, or more likely than not, otherwise your chance of getting a bye is completely kaput. But look, if you're going to win a championship in this league, there's going to be tough matchups that you have to win, and you kind of just have to embrace that. It's not always going to be perfect, but you just kind of have to, get out there and do your best to win against some of these top teams because you're not just going to play the likes of Daniel and Matt and Conor in the playoffs to win a championship.
Although
Uh,
you are, and it doesn't go well for you all the time.
Right. Well, and look, I mean, it's you never know what's going to happen, right? I was the one seed last year and I lost in the finals. I was the one seed in 2021. I lost in the semis. You got a bye in 2021. You lost in the semis. Both me and you were convinced that we were going to meet in the finals that year. Instead, it was Erik and Conor, right? Um, so you don't know what's going to happen. All you can do is do what you can to put yourself in that best position to succeed. And then also too, like, and I'm sure we'll get into some of this more as we're talking about the matchups for these teams, but like who's really playing that well down the stretch that's a playoff team? I mean, Andrew and Anthony, neither team deserved to win this week. Neither team played particularly well. If you look at EBO's record as of late, yeah, they beat the Daniel and Matt this week, but that matchup was tied at one point yesterday, aka Saturday. Like, the last time, if you're going from the beginning of July for them, 7-5 win over Daniel and Matt. I mean, that was a close matchup. Then a 6-5 win over Alex and Zach. Like, I know they're getting better, but that's still, you'd like to see a bigger margin of victory there. But then tie to Anthony, lost to Andrew. They beat Ruthvik, but then they lost to me. Like, and then obviously my struggles are well documented with like half of my offense just dead and me racking up some more pitching injuries this week. Like, it's still here for the taking for you. The seating might not be ideal, but I think that you could just as easily be successful if you having the bye versus having to go and play Andrew in the first round or me in the first round the way both of our teams are playing. And you could still win a championship. Um, I
And
don't think this is death
I
knell
think
for
we
you.
can. I should remind myself of what happened at the end of the 2022 season when I came into the final week um, as looking like the number two seed. I beat Erik the final week, um, thinking I was the two seed, but because you had a Sunday comeback against Ruthvik, some weird tiebreaker fuckery happened, and I was overtaken for the two seed and finished as the three seed, despite, coming in as the two seed to that final week and upsetting Erik. And I made the finals that year. So, you know, it uh
It,
none of this matters in the
your favorite line, which you use more than anybody else, is that you never win the year that it's supposed to be your year. Um, I don't. You could argue it's your year, maybe it's not your year. I mean, it's this is certainly making it seem like it's not your year, right? Like, doesn't that you know kind of align with your whole philosophy of when people win?
it might this certainly is a blow. Um and it feels like, and I was saying this off air, like the opposite of last year. Last year I, went 15-0, 16-0 against teams with a worse record than me in the regular season, and uh couldn't, with the exception of one rivalry week win over Erik, couldn't beat a single good team in the regular season. Whereas this season, I've um I've swept you, I've swept EBO, I've got a win over Anthony. I uh I have some key tiebreakers, but at the same time, I'm 0-2 against Anthony or against Andrew. I did not beat Jake. I had this tie to Ruthvik. I struggled with Alex, both matchups. So it feels like kind of the opposite. And last year didn't end well. So maybe this year, I'm built to beat the better teams.
It's been a really weird season in which I feel like there's been more upsets than usual, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just thinking about my team, but it feels like there's been a little more. It's been a little weirder season. Um, but look, I mean, going back to your team for a second too, like going into this week, I think if you were to have played any other team, I think going into the matchup, I think you would have been the favorite against 10 of the other 11 teams. The only team I don't think you would have been a favorite against is Erik. And even that is debatable. And I think it arguably would have come down to who kind of has the better pitching matchups for the week. I don't know what's changed over last week to make us think otherwise.
I don't know. Why don't we transition this into talking about my matchup, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. Look, you lost 6-5-1 to Ruthvik, and very close matchup. You were kind of winning pretty big to start the week. He slowly kind of ate into uh, the this matchup here, highlighted by one of the best pitching days I've seen in a while. He had a 5 start day on Friday, got 4 quality starts, was eerily reminiscent of the um, 4 quality starts that I had in the 2020 semis that sent you packing. Um, and ultimately, you just never really recovered from that. And, you tied saves, but lost all the other hitting or pitching categories, but you won all the hitting categories but steals. And I mean, I told you, offline, I was like, this is kind of the worst case scenario for you, and you still only lost 5-6-1. But I'll let you talk more about this matchup. Um, take it away.
So I think we've kind of gone through how this went emotionally for me. I was certainly active in the chat, uh, all sorts of words, but I think we can talk about this analytically. I think part of the reason this hurt so much was because I had such an elite hitting week. 21 homers, 56 ribbies, 50 runs, 18 doubles. just absolutely dominant. Hitting wise, I mean, Aaron Judge homered how many times this week? Seven times, 11 RBI. I'm tempted to give him matchup MVP in the losing effort, but I won't. Uh, just one of the best hitting weeks we've seen from any player all year. Juan Soto was great. Francisco Lindor is on a heater. Jackson Merrill had a big home run on Sunday, although just kind of an average week. Vlad Jr. had a 538 OBP. Wilson Contreras had a great week. Jonathan India has been great every day that he's on my bench, and he's been terrible every day that he's been in my lineup, so that's weird. But I've kind of started to bench him for the Reds' sake. Um, on the other hand, I didn't win a single pitching category. I had saves until uh I had saves briefly on Sunday following a Ryan Helsley miraculous save. But then, you know, Andres Munoz got one at the end, didn't pitch very well, pitched around some trouble to get it. I also didn't get a single hold all week. Just a lot of bad luck with guys kind of warming up to come in, and then suddenly the offense scores 6 runs, and now it's not a hold situation. That happened twice to Jeff Hoffman this week. Um, and um, I tried to stream some holds, didn't go super well. Um, yeah, that's kind of how my matchup went. I thought my starting was great at the start of the week and then just kind of fell apart. Um, Tanner Houck, great first start, terrible second start. Seth Lugo, great, better first start, worse second start. Framber Valdez, almost had a quality start and then didn't cover first and then gave up 3 runs after getting pulled. Uh, so just a lot of weirdness there. I can't believe I didn't get a single hold all week. Um, but let's talk about Ruthvik's team. He won reluctantly. The hitting was not super great. He kept it close in doubles and he did steal 11 bases thanks to 3 steals from Andres Jimenez. OBP below 300 for the week though. Pitching wise though, I mean, last week he used 3 starters. He used 3 starts all week. And this week somehow he used all 12 and got 96 Ks with 7 quality starts. Like, where did this come from? If if we saw Ruthvik's pitching from last week, if and maybe it's my fault, and maybe this is what I'm gonna decide. It's my fault for talking about tanking last week, bringing that into the world, and then his pitching goes and does this to me. 7 quality starts, 4 on Friday, 96 Ks. Um, just a stupidly good week. Matchup MVP will be Joe Musgrove, who pitched 7 innings, 1 hit, 9 strikeouts, got a quality start. But good start from Ryan Nelson that I saw in person after a rough first inning. Um, great 2 starts from Yusei Kikuchi, even though he got paddocked both times. He looked weird in that Astros hat. I guess it's Photoshop, that's why. Michael Wacha pitched well. Um, Everything just really lined up pitching wise for that team. And not that he needed to have such a great pitching week because mine was really lousy, but everything kind of worked for him. He had a 6-5-1 win that he did not want. I had a 5-6-1 loss that I did not want, and that's where we stand.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm sure you could go back and look at any of the champions each year, and they all have 1 or 2 games like this where you're like, what the fuck happened? How did you lose to this team? And then I think that the only thing that makes it unique in your case is that this happened in the second to last week. If it had happened a month ago, I think you would have been annoyed, but I don't think it would have been nearly as big of a deal.
I mean, if we ran the roto, just the 1 week roto, I would almost certainly be like multiple spots ahead of Ruthvik.
I'm sure shit happens. That's why we play the games. If we just played this all on paper, you would lose in the finals to Erik. Like but that's why we play the games. Shit happens.
I hate the games.
Could be I've never seen you, and it's like Cam chatted me this week, and he was like, "I'm so ready for this whole season to be over." And I was like, "Well, just the regular season or the playoffs?" And he's like, "The whole damn season." Um, I've never seen this is like maybe the best team that you have had in the 7 years of the league, right? And you drafted with the whole expectation that you're going to tank those first 2 years so that like the next 10 years after that, we're going to be awesome and you will finally reach that pinnacle. And I swear it's like a new young player gets promoted every week to your team that just absolutely tears it up. James Wood's tearing it up now, and Junior Caminero looks good, and Jackson Merrill to start the year, and I mean he's still tearing it up. He had a walk-off homer today, right? On top of all of this great young core that you still have with Vlad and Soto, and I know he's a little older. He's your one old guy, but Judge, and he's still Lindor. I guess he's getting a little older too, but like, and Zach Neto, like, you know, you went through your Adele Kellenic years where, you called up the guys and it didn't work, but you're calling them up and they're all working now.
I gotta figure what to do with Caminero when he comes up, by the way. That's
You, you, oh,
gonna be tough.
here's the other thing I'll say about your team too. Unlike the other teams in this league, um, or I'll say unlike the other non-Erik playoff teams, you have like no injuries. Yeah, Wilson Contreras got hurt. I get it. He fractured his finger this week. That sucks. But that's your only bat that's hurt. And there are catchers that can replace him in the market. I'm not super worried about that for you, right? And then on the pitching side, it's you, Darvish, Tyler Mahle, and Shane McClanahan. And two of those guys, oh, I didn't realize Maley's back in the IL now, but like two of those guys have been out basically all year, and you kind of plan around them going into the season, right? And McClanahan and Mahle, and then you Darvish has like been out for a while. Like, you've been able to adjust accordingly. Like you went and you traded for Seth Lugo, right? Like, um,
Luger's been terrible since I got him.
no, sure, but like you at least kind of plan around it, and like your team is remarkably healthy. Like the health towards the end of the season goes a long way.
We'll see. Um, I've got some decisions to make, and if I lose to Erik, I could drop as low as the 5 seed, which would not be ideal. I've never been the 5 seed before, so that's not
You're
what we want.
I'm gonna be the 6th seed. I've never dropped lower than 4, and even then, that was only once. Like shit happens. You just have to adjust. Um, I will say this too. That is such a nice problem to have. That hey, I need to clear room for the number one prospect in baseball, but all my players are healthy. Oh no, how do I clear room for him? Right? Like I can't think of a better case scenario for you right now.
All right, all right. Should we talk about your matchup? Anything else on this one?
No, no, we've talked about you for the better part of an hour. I feel like between off air and on air. Have I made you feel a little better? It's my last question.
Maybe. I just
Ugh,
got to keep reminding myself that this doesn't matter, and then only the playoffs matter.
exactly. There you go. That's the Cam I know and love. All right, let's jump into my matchup. I lost to Erik 7-5. I actually had the lead at one point yesterday somehow, and it just kind of shitty offensive day today prevented me from at least tying. That being said, I finished with 9 home runs at Erik's 10. If I'd won that category, I would have tied him. Um, And I'm pretty happy with my performance considering, I'm still missing Westberg and Albies and Yelich and Tatis. Soler or Soler only started 2 games this week because he was dealing with a hamstring injury and the Braves wouldn't put him on the IL. Um, Zach Eflin landed on the IL at the beginning of the week, so I had 9 IL guys, so I was playing with one less bench spot. Um, and I mean, just considering all those factors, the fact that, I was leading on Saturday and that it was a competitive matchup that came down to the last game on Sunday makes me feel pretty happy here. Um, I'm hoping for some better health coming up here. I think it looks like Jared Jones is going to start on Tuesday. He was one of my big acquisitions right before the deadline that has yet to pitch for me. And if I'm taking Zach Eflin at his word, he's going to be back on September 1st. So he's going to be back this week. Um, that's huge. And if I can get those guys healthy, and maybe one of these bats comes back, maybe Tatis comes back during the playoffs. I'm not so sure about Westberg or Albies, and we already know Yelich is out for the year. Maybe something can happen, but as it stands, it's kind of a frustrating season with the injuries, and I just kind of have to you know, take these silver linings where I can and these matchups and um oh this is kind of depressing, but let me see if I can add this up quickly. No, I don't even want to. It's gonna make me too depressed. But let's. I was gonna see how many of these players have missed time on the IL this season, but the number's too high. Eric's team, meanwhile, great week. He hit very well. 17 stolen bases, 10 homers, 50 ribbies, 50 runs. That's certainly gonna help him win a lot of matchups. A little low on the quality starts for him. He only had 4 quality starts. I actually outpitched him this week despite not having any 2-start weeks. I had 6 quality starts, 4 saves, 307 ERA, 107 whip to top him there, but he had 80 strikeouts and 8 holds, so he was able to win both of those categories, and that combined with his offensive prowess was enough for him to pull out 7 categories. And man, I mean, Erik certainly looks ready for the playoffs here. He is now in his last 12 games, 10-1-1 with a 5-7 loss and a 6-6 tie since starting the streak on May 20th. So um, after kind of a slow start to the season, he was 4-3-1 at one point. I mean, Erik is just destroying everybody.
He really is, and yeah, it was pretty good offensive week. 17 steals. Yeah, really solid pitching as well. Tight matchup. You definitely had yeah, had a chance to win. But uh, but Eric's offense was just too much. He had 8 holds, so it almost feels like he's trying to set up to beat me with those holds by kind of getting his lineup set up in a way that because he doesn't get holds. He's not a holdy team. Um, Bottom middle of the pack, in that category. So it's definitely surprising to see him get 8. Overall, though, just a really yeah, really solid week. The pitching rates were good. We're looking at the pitchers. It was a yeah, great start for Chris Sale once again. Michael King made 2 strong starts. Ronaldo Lopez looked good. Hitting wise, Ohtani, another great week. Couple homers, 3 steals, 6 RBIs. Ellie stole a couple bases, drove in 7 runs as well. Had a 438 OBP. Good week for William Contreras. Good week for Jock Peterson, who's, I guess, on Eric's team as of the start of August. He homered, had a great on base percentage. I think I'll give it to Ohtani, though. just contributing across five categories, everything except for doubles. Uh, your team, the hitting was just kind of mediocre, uh, below 290 OBP. You won doubles, but that was the only hitting category you won. Pitching looked good though. You got a quality start, six quality starts, some good appearances from Gallon, Nestor Cortez as well. Just not quite enough.
Yeah, I think ultimately, if I'm to win in the playoffs, I mean, it's really going to come on the back of this pitching staff. I mean, they're about as healthy as any other part, or they're the healthy part of my team. So, I mean, if I'm certainly encouraged by the way they performed this week, and they've performed over the last month. And um, if I can keep them going, it's almost the opposite of you. You were just dominated all the offensive categories this week, but you're struggling into pitching. I feel like my team's kind of the opposite right now, where I'm capable of winning 4 to 5 pitching categories pretty easily, but I just the theme of my matchups over the last month is I can't win more than 1 or 2 hitting categories, and it's ultimately sinking me, even against some of these worst teams. So we'll see. You never know who's going to get hot, so I'm just
Yeah.
trying to keep the hope up.
You really don't. And I mean, Seiya Suzuki was hot this week. That's kind of Tyler Stevenson was hot, but he's off your roster now. That's kind of it for bright spots from your hitting, but you're right, you never
Well,
know.
I do have John Kenzie Noel up on the roster now. I streamed him once this week. On the one day he didn't get a hit, but he I think hit homers basically every other day this week that he did play. Um, and maybe he'll be kind of the piece that leads my team. Would not have guessed he had a 161 WRC plus on the or going into today. That number is increased because he had a home run today. But I mean, he is killing it. And the K rates dropped month over month. I wonder if the Guardians have another star over here that just nobody's talking about. And clearly I wasn't either because I just saw the numbers today.
Yeah, I mean he's absolutely killing it. I kind of had an idea, but it was yeah, even better than I had anticipated.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Like I didn't realize this good. He had a 183 WRC plus in August going into today, and he just turned 23 a couple days ago. I mean, he's gonna be a fun one for them.
Absolutely. But yeah, and you've already got Josh Naylor too, so you're just kind of taking on that whole uh couple first basemen in Cleveland.
Yeah, yeah. I don't no Noel's been playing the outfield. I don't know if he's actually a good defensive fit out there, if they just don't really have a choice. Um with Naylor occupying first base because the Naylor outfield experiment has been over for quite some time in Cleveland, but uh we'll see how that one goes. I certainly appreciate Alex cutting him. So
Yeah, I saw him homer
sorry.
in person this June in Worcester. He's a big guy, that is for sure.
Yeah, if he could just cut down to swing and miss a little bit, which he's starting to do, is like a 7% walk rate with a 25% K rate in August. If he could just do that, like he's gonna hit like 30, 40 home runs pretty easily and be a really fun dynasty asset.
Now that's definitely some wishful thinking, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Let's move on to the last matchup between two playoff teams. Anthony 8-3-1 win over Andrew. Happy hour. Not a happy hour for them. Please clap. Um, but uh, yeah, they managed to avoid having a noteworthy sheet-worthy OBP, whereas uh, couple couple days ago they were at like 220. Both these teams hit a bunch of doubles. But yeah, just a really rough week for Andrew and kind of a average week for Anthony, but did enough to pull out the win.
God, I guess I said this at the top of the podcast. I don't think either team particularly deserved to win this week. I mean, 32 RBIs won it for Anthony in that category. They were both strangely elite in doubles. They both had 21 doubles, so I'll give them kudos there. But neither of them pitched particularly well. I guess Anthony had a low ERA and WHIP, but didn't rack up a ton in the quality starts, saves, or holds categories. Andrew had 6 saves, but only 2 quality starts, 2 holds. He had a really low WHIP, a 102 WHIP to go with the 5.06 ERA. So maybe he got a little bit unlucky there, but 3 homers, 17 ribbies. I mean, this just neither team inspired a lot of confidence in me heading into the playoffs. And, I think it's I do think Anthony was playing a little bit over his head for and I think he's maybe regressing a little bit. And I know Andrew kind of took almost a seller's direction, or he calls it a retool, at the deadline here. Um, and I don't know. I'm not super confident about it either of these teams, and right now, and I think this week's proving it. And of course, this means that one of them is going to beat me in the first round of the playoffs. But
Yeah, I'll push back on that a little. I think Anthony had a good week. He didn't have a ton of pitching quantity, but the numbers were good there. And he hit the RBI totals were low, but he did score 40 runs, 21 doubles, and a good on base. Great week from Matt Wallner, who drove in 5 of those runs with a great OBP. Uh, Good week for um, Ryan Jeffers, who hit a couple of his doubles. Christopher Morel had 3 doubles. Uh, Parker Meadows did well as well. 5 runs, 3 doubles for 17 OBP. Matchup MVP, though, has got to go to the guy who basically did all of his pitching, and that was Gavin Stone. 2 7-inning quality starts, 17 strikeouts, allowed just 1 run combined between the two of them. He is on a roll, and Anthony is very happy to have him down the stretch, I would say.
I'm sure he is. Um, so this Andrew loss, I will say he should be very thankful I lost, because otherwise he would have dropped below me in the standings. As it stands, I believe he remains as the 5 seed, with me as the 6, and Anthony stays there in that three-way tie with you and EBO. I know you're the 2. I don't know who has the uh, tiebreaker between EBO and Anthony in that scenario, but yeah.
I think that's a good question. I think it just comes down to how they played each other, because EBO's got 2 losses to me, but yeah, not sure how
Uh,
they fared against each other.
EBO beat Anthony 7-5 and then tied him 6-6. So EBO owns that tiebreaker, which means that we're actually looking at a potential rematch of this matchup in the first round of the playoffs if the seeding doesn't change.
Very interesting indeed. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, at least for Andrew's sake, he hits better and pitches better in that rematch.
Yeah, for his sake, I sure hope so. If they do play again.
Hmm. Absolutely. Moving on here, where do you want to go next?
Uh, yeah, let's talk about Jake v Yuki. That one kind of came down to the wire as well. Jake won 6-5-1, and what I thought was interesting is he actually made a couple of moves throughout the matchup, which indicated to me that despite the fact that he's not gonna make the playoffs, that he's still very much in the business of trying to win matchups. And perhaps it's, because unlike Ruthvik, he doesn't own his first round pick, but nonetheless, big 6-5-1 win for him, 17 homers, 53 RBIs, and a big offensive week there. And then on the pitching side, 5 quality starts, 4 saves, 1 hold. Uh 66 Ks, 390 ERA, 113 whip. Interestingly, he only won two of the pitching categories and tied another despite that solid week. But the fact that he was able to put up a pretty dominant offensive showing, power-wise, was enough to propel him to a win here, and he will now be 7, 8, and 6. And if Jake can pull off the win next week, he will finish this season at exactly 500. So, maybe a nice benchmark for him in a lost season. As for Yuki, he drops to 7, 12, and 2, and with the Ruthvik win, it is certainly looking like Yuki's pick is going to be um one of the higher odds lottery picks. And that is good news for Yuki as he does own his first round pick.
I just remember, did we vote to do the new lottery rules? Or are we doing the old lottery rules? We had a vote on in the off season. Um,
Uh, I don't remember if that was a vote in here or not, or maybe if the hockey league or some
no,
sort.
it was this league. The rule was most wins after being eliminated from the playoffs. Um,
Oh shit,
oh God, we
did we
did
completely
we?
that about that? Uh
I have no idea if we ever voted on that. Um,
okay, because I
let
think
me. I'm seeing
this rule changes sheet I think is old. I think this is from the year prior.
this is from the 2022 rule changes. Oh God, we need to ask Erik.
Yeah.
Um,
Um I don't
if you text him right now, maybe we can get a response live on air. Um,
yeah, here
oh
I'm sure.
God, have we been? I think at a certain point, it's got to be like, hey, we've all been kind of playing under the assumption that we weren't doing that. Let's save it for next year. Um,
Yeah. Um yeah, because
but
then I think we'd have to closely check it more, unless Eric has been sitting here behind the scenes calculating it. But
I
we'll see.
don't think he has. But I'm sure it wouldn't take me too long to figure out when each team was eliminated. But
I
that would certainly be an interesting way to be like, hey, Daniel and Matt have had zero wins since being eliminated, so they're not going to get the number one pick. Um,
Oh God, yeah, they would really be boned by that.
I mean, that was kind of the point of the rule to kind
No,
of
I
make
know.
that a thing, but not like, make it random.
Also, in that case, Ruthvik wanting to lose this week would have been the wrong thing. He would have wanted. He should have wanted to have won.
True, and that's kind of what the idea behind this rule was to make people
Want to win. Yeah,
want to win.
yeah.
I like the rule. I just don't know if we're doing it this year or not.
Yeah, I almost think that none of us actually thought that we were doing it for this year, so we shouldn't. But that's going to be an interesting discussion with Eric. Also, it's been raised a couple times down the chat about like this race for wanting to get the higher odds buy or higher odds lottery the higher lottery odds, and nobody's kind of pushed back against it, which leads me to think that uh that's what we're doing. But in any event,
In any event, yeah, it seems like Jake is, yeah, he's streaming guys. I mean, I don't think he thinks Jorge Lopez is going to be on his team next year. Chris Martin, he was trying to win this week against Yuki, so good for him in that regard. Unless he's maybe the only one who thinks that he's playing under that rule, which would really complicate things. Um, but regardless, Jake avoided tying EBO's record with 7 ties. He's still sitting on 6 ties. He had uh, all things considered, a solid hitting week. Not really there in terms of runs, but hit 17 homers, drove in 53. Uh, uh, good week from Corey Seager with 3 homers. I feel like we haven't talked about him much. I do not know what kind of season he's having. I guess
It's a solid season,
he's
but
been pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Definitely not kind of where he was last postseason. Good week for Casas. Interesting week for JD Martinez in that he hit 3 homers, drove in 7 runs, but had 174 OBP. Um, on the pitching side, Spaghetti had a good start. Kevin Gosman had his second start, especially, was phenomenal. First start was okay. I don't really know where to look for matchup MVP. I think I'm going to um yeah, no real standouts. I think I'm gonna go Gosman because he had the quality start, had 15 Ks, 0.75 whip. The ERA was 3, might be the highest ERA for a matchup MVP winner. And especially since that's a tight category, but no real standout bats. So Gosman takes it with the 15 Ks.
There you go. And I did get a response from Eric. Eric says he doesn't recall us ever voting on it, so looks like we're playing under the old rules.
Cool. And let's vote. Let's make a point to vote on it this offseason.
Yes, agreed,
And
agreed.
let's make a point at the league to start keeping track of what we voted on because we don't keep track of that anywhere. The Hockey League does a good job with that, and we don't. We don't.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that can be done there. Yuki's team, by the way, Yuki stole 12 bases. He had 7 quality starts. Overall, not the best week though for him. Um, Although, yeah, shout out to Dansby Swanson stealing 4 bases. He has uh he has 14 this season and 4 of them were this week. So Dansby Swanson, I guess, suddenly has decided to start running.
He is not at a good season. And it's funny because I thought that contract and the Trey Turner contract were going to be the two of those shortstop contracts that aged well, and so far it's not looking particularly good for that Swanson contract. Uh, but we'll see. Or at least this year. I think last year was kind of fine, but uh,
But yeah, let's 2 matchups left. Why don't we talk about EBO beating Daniel and Matt? This one was tied at one point. Was EBO losing at one point? They ended up pulling away, having a great weekend offensively, but doesn't look like, just looking at the numbers, doesn't look like this one was ever close, but it was for a while.
yeah, what happened was EBO had a big quantity of starting pitchers going over the course of the weekend, and that flipped a lot of the counting categories. Whereas I think Daniel and Matt used like 2 or 3 starts all week. So, yeah, I think just kind of how this usually goes with Daniel and Matt. But yeah, nonetheless, very solid week for EBO. They were one of the few playoff teams that didn't have a particularly tough matchup. And they certainly took advantage of that. I mean, 14 homers, 59 ribbies, 12 steals, 50 runs, all very solid, 17 doubles. 120 whip is maybe a little high to go with the 285 ERA before quality starts, 5 saves, 69 strikeouts, all pretty solid across the board there. And um, I kind of mentioned in the open they've been a little more inconsistent as of late. But I mean, they're able to do what they needed to here to rack up a win, and they're kind of reaching an easy part of the schedule here. They play Yuki next week, and I think this team is about as ready for the playoffs as they are going to be. Um, so I think let me see if I remember correctly. I think they had a pretty big. No, it's the opposite. They're getting healthier too. Verlander came back this week. Um, and Kyle Tucker looks like he might finally be making progress. So, Ranger Suarez came off the IL this week. That's who I was thinking of. So, This is another team that's getting healthy right in time for the playoffs, and maybe they're gonna be peaking at the right time here.
They might be, and it was a really great hitting week for them. 59 RBIs, 12 steals, especially 50 runs. Um, I think the matchup MVP has got to be Eugenio Suarez, who drove in 10 runs, 370 OBP, including a grand slam that I saw in person. Um, but a good week for guys like Luis Robert, who stole three bases, had a 455 on base percentage. Good week for PCA, who's on this team now, I guess.
He's been
He had that
awesome.
inside the park homer.
He's been awesome.
He's
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know I haven't needed him, but it kind of stinks to see him doing so well with EBO. Um,
Yeah. Him and
he,
Jake McCarthy, they've kind of found these like very speedy young outfielders that are just like kind of on tears right now, and I'm curious if they keep it up. But both of them have kind of been a big part of their recent wins.
yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, on the pitching side, it was very good. They got 5 saves, including two from Luke Sedge, I think is how it's pronounced. He's with Kansas now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's I guess getting saves for them. But also a good start for Imanaga, a good start for Pablo Lopez. Daniel and Matt, they just couldn't quite get it done. They got 6 holds. They're getting holds. The ERA was half decent. Um, I guess the rostering Jonathan Cannon, he was not helping them out, but um, I, they used 2 starts this week. I think both of them. I guess they used 3 starts this week, and 2 of them were Jonathan Cannon. They got one more crack at it. They face Conor next week. I want to be optimistic for them. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, God, if they finish winless, that would be something else. I do think that there's starting to get some pieces here that like I look at this team and I'm like, hey, Mark Vientos had a really nice season, and like, Jordan Lawler's in the minors. I know that he dealt with some injuries this year, but he still has a lot of talent, and Heston Kjerstad and Brenton Doyle's broken out, and I know he's kind of struggled a little bit lately, but I think Mackenzie Gore could be a building block, right? Like I'm starting to see some of the pieces come together. Logan O'Hoppy's another one that comes to mind, Bryson Stott, but yeah, they're still a long way to where they need to be. But we shall see how that one plays out. Anything else here, or you want to talk about the last matchup?
Talk about the last one. Alex and Zach, narrow 7-5-1 win over Conor. Um, rare uh, off pitching week for Alex and Zach, but they did just enough hitting wise to get the job done, I would say. Neither team played particularly well, but um, that these teams were 10th and 11th going into this matchup, and it'll be a big one for lottery odds in Connor's favor. Do these teams on their picks?
I don't think so. So I actually it doesn't matter because Alex owns both of them. He owns Connor's pick and his own pick.
Hey,
So
good for him.
yeah, as well as owning Jake's pick, so he's gonna have 3 lottery picks.
Okay. How about that? Yeah. Uh, Looking at Alex's team, yeah, pitching wise, Cody Bradford, 2 solid starts, 11 Ks, both quality starts, 2.77 ERA, 0.77 WHIP. So good for him. Uh, Ronel Blanco has not been pitching well lately, has not been going deep into games either. So I'm kind of glad I didn't trade for him. Matt Waldron as well has, I believe, been optioned to AAA.
Yeah.
It's been a rough go of it since kind of late July for him, which is a bummer. Because he was a guy I've been rooting for. Um, but yeah, the season numbers are starting to not look that great for him. Um, Hitting wise, though, they got 3 homers from JJ Bleday despite a 240 on base percentage. Uh, 4 doubles for Joe Waddell with 5 ribbies. Um,
He's been kind of on a bit of a heater too. Seems like
he has, yeah.
every outfielder you've caught other than Kelenic seems to be on a heater.
You know, I've just kind of had a surplus of guys. I think, I'm tempted to give it to Adele, but I think I'll give it to the 2 quality starts for Cody Bradford just because they won by the 1 strikeout and uh, uh it made a difference.
I will say so. A little bit of unluckiness by Conor. Conor lost by 1 strikeout, and if you go back and look, you're like, well, what else could Conor have done? Robbie Ray had his revenge game today against the Mariners, pitching for the Giants, and Robbie Ray left the game after 3 innings with an injury. Looked like a hamstring, I think. And if Robbie Ray doesn't leave the game, presumably he racks up a couple more strikeouts. I think he was only at 62 pitches, and they would have tied. So just kind of rough there. I mean, also lost by 2 doubles and 4 RBIs. So not that it matters in the
Brutal.
scheme of things, but yeah, that's kind of a brutal way to lose.
It is, yeah, no, absolutely tough.
Uh,
But that is week 21. We got one more week of this to go before the playoffs.
that we do. I don't even think we need to dive in on what the matchup of the week is. It's pretty obvious, I think.
It is you know, Connor versus the Bellies. The Bellies have one more shot to avoid being the first winless team, and they got the team that they're best positioned to do that against. This is the matchup that I will be watching, um, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see if they can avoid the ignominy of a winless season.
You know what? I'll be honest. I agree with you that that is the matchup to watch, and I'm not even saying that sarcastically. Had you beaten Ruthvik and UV Erik would have been a matchup for the 1 seed. I That would have been a matchup to watch for me pretty easily. But Eric's already locked into the 1 seed. It's not relevant anymore. So yeah,
It's
like it's
still
gonna
matchup
help
of
me.
1v2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
maybe Eric can slide a win my way.
yeah,
If
but like this is something that's ever been done in league history is losing every game. This is one I really want to see how this plays out. I'll be honest. I'm a little more interested in that than however you finish.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily, but yeah, most of these are yeah, playoff teams versus non-playoff teams. Uh, I guess Jake versus Anthony, true talent wise, is a very tight one. So I'm curious about how that one goes, but yeah, otherwise there's a matchup between the top 2 teams, a matchup between the bottom 2 teams.
Yeah, I'd say that Jake v. Anthony's interesting because like I'm still in we'll talk about this more in the off season, but I've said this off air to people. I have some questions about the long term of Jake's team, but I do think in the short term his team has gotten healthier relative to where it was, say, a month or two ago, and he has been playing better as a result. So I don't think like Anthony is just automatically going to beat him. I do think that that one's actually going to be pretty tough in addition to the fact that Jake is actually like playing this out pretty strongly. He's not pulling a Ruthvik here. So, um, I would not be surprised if Jake pulled out a win here and that kind of drops Anthony to that 4 seed or maybe even the 5 seed, although I'm not sure that's actually possible. I haven't run through that playoff
Uh,
scenario. I guess who it purely depends on the tiebreaker between Andrew and Anthony, which I don't know what happened the first time they played. It
it
looks like
looks like
ooh,
3-7-2 and 8-3-1 So Anthony just barely by one category has the tiebreaker over Andrew.
Okay, so Anthony could lose and still be a 4 seed. So I don't think Anthony could drop any lower than where he is at, but I don't think he can get any or he can get higher, but he can't.
Well, actually, take. I think we should take that back because if Anthony and I both lose, and Andrew wins, I think Andrew has the three-way tiebreaker over both of us. Although no, that's not true because in that case, Anthony, I would five. So yeah, never mind.
Okay. I think in all likelihood we're looking. I mean, just to kind of run through this quickly, right? Eric's going to be the 1 seed. That's locked in. You and EBO and Anthony are currently tied to a 3-way tie. You hold the tiebreaker over both of them, and I believe we said EBO holds the tiebreaker over Anthony. So it's you two, EBO 3, Anthony 4. Andrew is a game back of all three of those, all three of your teams. He is 5, and I am a game back of Andrew, so I am 6. Now, if Andrew loses and I win, I can jump to the 5 seed, but I am otherwise basically locked into the 6 seed. And given that Andrew plays, um, who does he play next week? He plays Alex next week. I think more likely than not, although I think Alex is an interesting team. Um, I think that I'm more likely to not going to be a 6. And then I think it's really that in the middle there where there's some of that intrigue and certainly you versus Erik, could really is really going to affect how that plays itself out.
It really is. I think,
Maybe I should be
yeah, looking,
to watch.
I,
I I misspoke. I got caught up in the whole
I'm
three.
gonna be the 5 seed unless I can upset Eric.
Okay,
That's
what is the scenario for you to make it to the 5 seed? Because that it still feels so weird to me to think of you.
me losing and Andrew winning. That's all it would take.
Okay, so if you lose, okay, but also EBO would need to win and Anthony would need to win, I'm assuming.
No, if Anthony loses, if Anthony doesn't matter for that scenario.
But that's okay. So you're saying
Because if Anthony win, because I guess EBO has to win.
okay.
Um,
So in a world where you lose, EBO wins, and what was the last one? Anthony.
and
No,
Andrew wins.
okay, so that would put Erik at
That's like the most likely scenario.
okay. So that puts Erik at 1. That puts EBO at 2, right? Because EBO is a tiebreaker over Anthony.
Mhm.
Let's say Anthony wins in that scenario. Anthony's 3.
And Andrew's got the tiebreaker over me.
So Andrew 4, you 5. Shit. Wow. I'm I and I think that's the scenario I root for because that means I avoid you in the first round. Or
And
you
that means I get Andrew first round, which I I've beaten you twice. I've lost to Andrew twice, and I don't want to, you know.
that just means you're gonna win the third time. Oh wait, no, you've beaten Andrew twice. That just means you're gonna lose to Andrew the third time, right? Because that's I think someone actually calculated it out in the chat. It might have been you, and it's like half of the time the team loses the third time.
It's pretty 50-50, yeah.
Okay, right? So it's like, it's not some guarantee or anything. You know what, you can one of us I'm gonna try tomorrow to actually lay out the playoff scenarios in the chat. I feel like we haven't done the best job kind of explaining them. We're a little all over the place here. And I think it's one of those things that's easier when you have it written down. But yeah, I mean, it's you could fall anywhere between 2 and 5, and you can make it really easy on yourself just by winning, and you get the bye. But if not, yeah, you're right. You can really fuck things up for yourself. Um, that being said,
Yeah,
nothing ever
let's.
goes the way that we think it's going to go. So it's certainly possible that even if you lose, somebody else loses that you would expect to win, and all of this sudden it really messes things up.
You're right. Let's pick these.
Yeah. Okay, well, before we pick these, I finally added up the pick 'em. I know you all have been waiting for that, and actually, I think a particular reason Cam had a good point. It does affect our little off-season contest. What do we call that? Something contest? Some sort of
Just the prediction game, I guess.
Yeah, off-season prediction game. Okay, that's great. We have been assuming based off of vibes that Cam is ahead of me. And we have finally been able to confirm that Cam is the equivalent of 73 and 35. I'm the equivalent of 71 and 37, so he's 2 games ahead of me. When you add the ties back in, and I flip the order, I should say that, but I'm 63, 29, and 16, and he's 65, 27, and 16. So that we are certainly close here. We both picked Alex, Jake, and EBO to win, and they all won. I picked Anthony to win. You picked Andrew. You were wrong about that. Uh, we both picked you to win. We were both wrong about that. I picked Eric to beat me. You picked me to beat Eric. You were wrong about that. So you actually helped me kind of get back into this a little closer this week. But alrighty, it is time to pick week 22. Cam, take it away.
All right. I think in this week 2022 or week 22, that you are going to beat Ruthvik. I think Andrew is going to beat Alex. I think EBO is going to beat Yuki. I think Anthony is going to tie Jake and give Jake that seventh tie. Um, I think Eric will beat me, and I'm going to pick the jury one last time. I think they're going to avoid going winless.
All right. I will pick me to beat Ruthvik as well. I will pick a EBO to beat Yuki. Although that one has the potential to be weird. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I think Yuki's playing a bit better than people are giving him credit for. Um, and that has the potential for some shenanigans, but I think Jake's just gonna outright beat Anthony, not even a tie. I think, like I said, he's playing better as of late. I think Alex is going to upset Andrew. I mean, I've mentioned this a couple of times now on air. I think Alex is playing really well and has a lot of like 5 or 6 category wins against really good teams. And I think he ends his season on a high note. Sorry, Daniel and Matt. I think Conor's going to win. I think they're going to go. They're gonna lose and go winless, and I think you're gonna beat Eric. And
Interesting, interesting.
I
So
think
very different picks from us. I can't see it happening, me beating Eric, but we'll see.
we only have 2 same picks this week. We both picked EBO to beat Yuki, and we both picked me to beat Ruthvik. And we'll see if either of those actually end up happening. But um, yeah, for those of you whose season ends after this week, congratulations on another great season. But for the rest of us, yeah, one last push here for seeding. I guess for everybody but Eric, because he knows exactly what seed he's gonna be. Must be nice.
It must be nice, you are right. But yeah, that's all for week 21. Week that we all hope that we can forget very soon.
Yes, yes. You want to hear a bold prediction?
What's that?
You are not going to lose another game this season.
That's a bold prediction.
Yeah. I think you're going to beat Erik, and I think you're going to win the league. And I think I made that as my off-season prediction, or I think one of those. I think we didn't. Actually, I'm curious, because I have this sheet up. You and I did a segment where we predicted the next like 5 championship winners or something like that, and it is sitting somewhere in this very sheet if I can find it. Oh, this one might actually. Hold on. This is completely unrelated to it, but this is interesting. Okay, I found this in a sheet. You and I made a prediction for when the 600th trade in league history would occur. Um, we must have done this a while back. I think we actually did this after. Um, okay, so this prediction was from December of 2020.
Oh boy.
You, me, and Erik all made a prediction. Erik's prediction was January 15, 2022. Mine was the 2022 trade deadline, whatever date that was going to be. And you said February 14, 2023. Do you want to guess when trade 600 was actually made?
I don't think it's happened yet, has it?
It has. And you were the one who made the trade, as a matter of fact.
Ooh.
It was January 23rd of this year. Cam trades 29 and George Valera to Ruthvik for Yohandy Morales.
Hey.
So we were all off. And I guess for context, that was the off season where we had nothing better to do. So like every other day there was like 50 trades. But okay, the very next tab was you and me picking who was going to win championships from 2023 to 2027. So we presumably did this one in like the off season before 2023. You want to know who each of us predicted to win?
Who?
You want to guess before I say it?
Predicted to win what exactly?
Predicted to win the championship.
You go for it.
Okay. I predicted you to win, and you predicted me to win.
Interesting.
Yeah. For content, and we were both wrong the off season before, or for the season before. I thought I was going to win it in 2023, and you thought Erik was going to win it. And interestingly, in 2025, we are picking the exact opposite. I think I'm going to win, and you think you're going to win. So flipping our picks for 24, and actually, you think you're going to win back-to-back championships, 2025 and 2026. So, all of that to say, maybe it is not your year, but if it's not your year, you're going to win the 2 years after this. So I'm sure you'll take that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else on that? Anything else we're digging up?
No, I just thought about that and I wanted to see that. But yeah, best of luck with your move next week, and we will
Thank
see.
you, and congrats on your new job.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you've already moved, but congrats on your move that already happened.
Appreciate it. I finally cleaned out the last box today.
All right.
Very excited. But yeah, we we'll see you guys on the other end for a discussion of week 1 of the playoffs. Or a preview of week 1 of the playoffs, I should say.
Talk to you then.
Yep.
I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. You could cut ties with all the lies that you've been living in. And if you do not want to see me again, I would understand. I would understand.
This podcast is good.